Hello, everybody. I am Bobby Carlton from FS Studio, and with me is Pete. Hi, Pete.
Hey, how's it going?
So today we're actually, it's funny. We're going to talk a little bit today about, obviously we always talk about sort of the metaverse and tools and digital twinning, but I figured there's been a lot of conversation as industries. First off, I don't know, Pete, if you heard, HSBC recently decided to close a number of their real world locations so they can actually focus on creating a digital twin in the metaverse, which brings up a lot of conversation of, how do you build in the metaverse? Like, what are the tools? Like, what's needed? Like, if you're a designer, if you're looking for somebody who wants to get a job in building virtual worlds, what kind of background do they need? But like, what's the whole process? And so I think this might be a good subject for us to sort of talk about, like how to build in the metaverse. What are the virtual tools, and what do you do, and how do you how are your processes like?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm a dev and I'm a fairly senior, very experienced dev.
Mhm.
I worked in a lot of different 3D. I've also worked on a lot of different social VR platforms, anywhere from, Active Worlds was the first one way back in like,
Ah,
the turn
ah,
turn of the century. And then there was one called there was one called Second Life. And then, I played around in those a lot. I learned a lot about the social thing, and that's where I sort of got turned into Unity head because
mm,
and that's one of the things that sort of differentiates all the different worlds is what can you do in them? Not so much the 3D stuff. I mean, they're all sort of allow
right.
you to build 3D environments that you can walk around in and interact with things in. But beyond that, the differentiator among all of them is like, what are the different kinds of things you can do in that world? So, and most of them sort of, they all evolve a similar set of features. You want to be able to do presentations. You want to be able to maybe have like over there. I'm looking at basketball, so what is one of the things in alt space that we're using is
Hmm.
physics, and ability to have basketballs that you can kick back and forth. And those things differentiate the different offerings. But then on top of that, there's how do you extend that if you want to do your own things, and how closed is a given
Hmm.
system, how easy to modify. So, we're getting better and better at that kind of thing. But one of the reasons that I sort of got onto the Unity track is because Unity is like a full-blown game engine, and you can do literally anything you can think of if it can be done. You know what I mean? It's
Hmm.
sort of all of the platforms that I was talking about, they're all made with some kind of game engine. Or, it could be a homegrown game engine, but they all have a
Right.
game engine underneath them, and many of them share the same game engine. I'm not gonna, I know one of the alt space VR. I know it can load scenes that were made in Unity, but it can only really load the geometry. If you want to, if an industry wants to really do deep VR training and take full advantage of the presence that
Hmm.
VR offers, then they probably want some sort of custom made experience that focuses on the specific interactions
Right.
that they want to train people in, probably aren't available in any of this sort of stock off the shelf things.
So they want some sort of like bespoke sort of experience, like very customized individual. So, you talk about engines, right? So we hear a lot about Unity and a lot about Unreal Engine. Two different things, and maybe, and I'm sure this might come up, like, but what are the biggest difference between the two, or are they pretty much just competitive sort of software?
Well, the biggest visible difference to a dev would be that in Unreal you can use something. You encourage you to use something called Blueprints, which is a visual programming language, um,
Hmm.
and that's sort of built in. So Unreal in one sense it's more approachable, and it's sort of also out of the box. It turns on all the eye candy.
Ah,
But with Unity, the eye candy doesn't come automatically. So basically, you can achieve the same results with either one. But Unreal is sort of more approachable and out of the box.
Mhm.
It's easier to achieve something that looks really
Gotcha.
cool. But with Unity, it's more program oriented. So
Hmm.
you can build your own things quite easily. There are also tools for Unity that will sort of turn it into a visual, give you
Gotcha.
that sort of visual blueprint kind of thing. But yeah, at the core, those are the two main
Good.
game engines that we've come down to nowadays. And a lot of it has to do with device support. So,
Right.
if you just wanted to run something on your Windows desktop, you could kind of come up with your own game engine and come up with
The
something that would let
design.
you run games on your Windows desktop. But then as soon as you try and put that on an Android, you run into all kinds of issues, not the least of which are, even copyright issues and trademarks
Right.
and
Oh,
licenses and
okay.
that kind of thing. And Unity and Unreal have both sort of done the work of contacting all of the open source people and saying, we're going to use your thing in our engine and we're going to publish the proper notices and all that. And in some cases, they probably pay a license fee, like maybe for Dolby or, who
Hmm.
knows all the technology that goes into the game engine has all been licensed. And not only that, integrated with the right versions by all the people.
Hmm.
So that's the main reason you want to use a mainstream
That's right.
game engine is because it's just for all the different things you need. We're not just talking about graphics. We're talking about a physics engine. We're talking
Hmm.
about an audio. We need to have web browser capabilities inside our VR here. We have voice chat. We have a network
All
multiplayer
this
thing
other.
going on. And
So.
then, like I was saying, the device support. We've got hands and stuff from Quest
Hmm.
headsets that we're wearing, but there's other people that are going to be in alt space VR and they're wearing an
Might be in a
HTC
Vive.
Vive or all
Yeah.
that kind
Or
of thing.
HP.
So it's a massive
Hold.
thing
So one
to
thing. So
deal
we
with.
talk about. Like, I was actually on the FS Studio website recently, and I had looked at. I was looking at jobs actually, and we list it's like C++ experts. Or so. How does C++ sort of build into all of this?
Well, actually, you sure it didn't say C sharp experts?
Oh, maybe it was. Maybe it was C sharp expert. Maybe that's what it was.
So yeah, I mean, if you're dealing with Unreal,
Hmm.
Unreal uses C++. And that might be one of the reasons why they have that sort of visual programming thing,
Hmm.
because C++ is it's a bit of a sharper tool. It's easier to cut yourself. You know what I mean?
Okay.
It's not as friendly of a language as C
Okay.
sharp is. Okay, but in Unity, most all of the code is done in C sharp, um,
Gotcha.
which is a .NET, and basically the foundation of Unity. The reason that it runs on all those devices is because it uses .NET, which is a
Hmm.
Microsoft framework for creating applications that run on a wide range of devices. So .NET has been ported and it will run on, the Android-based headsets we're wearing
Which is
now.
like this one. Yeah.
Um, yeah, but it also runs on Windows, on Mac, OS X, on
Right.
iOS, on tons like on the Xbox platform, the Sony PlayStation platform. Basically, it's been ported to run on pretty much
Right.
every
Everything.
platform, and that's what Unity is leveraging to allow it to run on them all.
Right. Which, by the way, and people probably don't know this, that Quest headsets are an Android device,
Yes.
essentially. So a lot of
Yeah.
people don't realize that you're that. So Android developers, for example, you'll see a lot of like job listings sometimes for Android developers, and that's because the Quest headset itself is an Android device.
If you were going to, there's certain areas where you might want to do basically if you get if you get a new Android and it has a feature that Unity doesn't support, same thing with iOS. There are techniques where you can write a module in C++ to
Hmm.
access the new capability called a wrapper and then expose that capability to the .NET framework so you can use it from C sharp. So there are rare instances where C++ is used even for Unity. Um,
Mhm.
but by and large, Unity is done with C sharp.
Oh, okay. And ultimately, what we're really sort of getting at is like building out a metaverse experience, though there are definitely tools out there to sort of let you sort of create something basic, like in Altspace, like we're in, like anybody can get an Altspace account, and through a little bit of playing around with the tools, you can add stuff like a table or a chair or something. But if you're starting from scratch, if you're building from like ground level up on a bespoke metaverse experience based on your industry or your brand, that there's a lot involved, right? I mean, there's
Well,
definitely
yeah,
a
I mean,
starting
like
point.
I said earlier, kind of humble brag a bit, but I've been doing VR stuff since the very late 90s. So I've been doing VR, social VR stuff for a really long time. And I played around with Altspace for a while and tried to figure out how do I do custom weird stuff. It is possible, but it's a
Hmm.
very like basically you have to read their docs and you have to use
Yeah.
React.js and you have to get a server and blah blah blah. So there's a whole bunch of things that make it a very specialized
Hmm.
and I want to say volatile because it can change at any time and
Yes.
then all of a sudden your world breaks and that kind of thing and you're at the mercy of someone else. You know what I mean? You don't have
Right.
control over, oh, I don't have control over that server or what kind of, I can only ask it to run my code, but I
Hmm.
can't expand it or add any new features to it, which is where I'm sort of getting, that's why I like to use Unity directly. And then the other thing about that is, and in in Second Life, which is probably the
I
most
remember Second
commercially
Life.
successful one, they had a lot of people go in there
Hmm.
from real life, try and set up their brand in world,
Yeah.
etc. And one of the things that real brands found was they didn't really want to go to Second Life and then go to their place. They just wanted to go to their place,
Right. Right.
So
And that
a
was
lot
about
of brands
2005,
just,
right? Second Life, wasn't that like around 2005, if I remember? I
yeah, it was
remember
around then
being in
because,
it.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
like I was sort of saying, like right around the year 2000, I started playing with Active Worlds and there was,
Hmm.
a dozen variants of that. And then there was there for a little while. And then Second Life came around. And so,
Hmm.
yeah, 2005, 2006, somewhere in around there. And they got pretty big. A lot of real life brands came in and
Yep,
tried
I remember.
to
Yeah,
do stuff. But
that was a bit.
what's who is saying hell is other people? So brands want no,
Right.
especially if it's an official thing. Like if you require someone to come and do training, you don't want them going through a lobby with a bunch of frankly perverts. You know,
Right.
griefing was what the term was called. So
Really? I had
yeah.
no idea that was a term. Wow. Okay.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
griefing. Um, yeah, just, giving people grief. Um, so, that's another reason to create your own branded.
Right.
Here's an app, you
Right.
run it on a headset. It only goes to our thing. There's no weird public
I,
access unless you have an employee account number or whatever.
yeah. So I always remember Second Life, and I remember I was an early Altspace user before it was owned by Microsoft. So I remember having
Okay.
Altspace account long before when it was like this indie developer type of social VR platform. But then when Microsoft obviously, I remember, and then Altspace closed shop, and I remember that was a bummer because it was an interesting platform. Then Microsoft came along and bought it. So was there a big difference from a developer side from like when it was independent versus Microsoft on the creativity side or no?
I don't really know, but I don't think so. Not in terms of the back end kind of thing. I mean,
Mhm.
there's sort of there's front end things that you can do, and I don't know what they are because again, I'm a developer, so I'm going, yeah, I don't really care if you can drag a pre-made basketball out into the scene. That, how do I make a pre-made basketball? That's what I want
Right.
to know.
But I think this is a great sort of segue into this idea of like, right, the metaverse is still evolving. Like the technology behind it is still, we still have these sort of gaps. Like, like I've been in conferences in like virtual platforms like Engage or again in here where like the audio cuts out or the video cuts out. I mean, even right before we started recording this, the system kind of crashed quickly. I disappeared, and Alan, our show's producer, disappeared, and so there's still glitches. Like we still, even though like this, I mean, when I look around this room, it is pretty amazing. It's a robust room. I can go outside on the patio. I could, you can watch TV. There's like a monitor that you can bring into your environment, but we still have sort of issues with that. And do you think
Yeah,
that's
but
eventually?
okay, so we're in a Zoom call. We have issues with calls. We have issues with email. Issues with watch TV.
Metaverse and it's still evolving. So again, like how do you see developers sort of resolving these issues of like audio or hand tracking? Like what is it?
Well,
Unity? Is it Unreal?
it's
What
not
is it?
really up to the developer to solve that issue because the issues you're talking about, they happen with Zoom, happen with
Right.
email, they happen with my streaming TV on my
Mm-hmm.
Apple TV, and they're probably hardware issues. And it's sort of like, what do car makers do when they manufacture a car to deal with traffic jams or
Gotcha.
bad roads or whatever? And yeah, maybe bad roads is a good thing, and developers sort of already do kind of,
Mm-hmm.
we do a lot of things to try and compensate for that. But in the end, if your streaming isn't
Yeah.
keeping up, your streaming isn't keeping up, and there's really not much we can do about it except to tell you, hey,
Yeah.
things are not
So there's a
working
number of
right.
factors. Like again, like as you said, it's no different than in life. If you're on your way to the supermarket and there's a fire and you can't get there, so you have to like stop. Like there's this. I mean, that's the sort of, I guess, how it is. So when you develop,
I
obviously
will say one thing that sort of connects with the idea of why, the
Mhm.
original question of why would you make your own custom virtual
Yeah,
world
please.
is because maybe like if you build on a platform that's trying to serve 10,000 people, they're more likely to have network issues than if you sort of create your own if you provision your own Amazon bucket. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
And
Hmm.
host your own virtual worlds on your own server, then you're less likely to have problems
Gotcha.
just because of
And
scale. Because
because it's at
you've
scale.
decided I've got a 50-person server and I'm having 30 people at a time in. So I've
Okay.
scaled my network bandwidth to the number of people that are going to use the service.
So that's a great question. So servers. So say a company comes in and they approach us, they approach FS Studio and say, "Hey, we want to build an FS, or we want to build our own bespoke metaverse experience to FS Studio." Does that company, does that client need to have a server? Like, how does that work? Or like, who's this? Who provides the server? Or is
Well,
that through
that's
another
where the
service?
pricing model. I mean, that's depends on the individual customer and whether they have the
Uh-huh.
wherewithal to manage that kind of thing. But that would basically go in a maintenance contract. And no software should really ever be made without some sort of maintenance contract because even if you don't plan on doing anything to it
Hmm.
once the project is over, other people are going to do things to you. Like Oculus is going to update their headset. Somebody's going to
Right.
break that. And you need to plan for that. It's inevitable. I mean, best defensive programming by a developer um, is only going to hold you out for so long. So maybe a year, maybe 2 years, but eventually headset updates and that kind of thing are going to
So
break your
there's other
software.
involved, right? It's not just building metaverse. It's not building the assets, but there's a
Right.
bit of cost sort of like annually.
And
make
you got to
sure
sort of
that
balance, okay, if we were going to
yeah.
use some other site, now you've got all of your users who are going to come there need to have an account with them. And does that cost money? Is your
Hmm.
company going to pay for that? How are you going to reimburse them?
Right.
Blah, blah, blah. And no matter what, if it's so that, let's talk about social versus just a plain training app. If you just want to do a training app, you don't need multiplayer network stuff for that, really. If you're
Hmm.
just one person, whatever. But if you want to do something a little more robust, then you can do a training app that sort of has a social aspect where at least some instructor can be there with you live. You know what I mean? So
Right.
that's the kind of custom thing
That's
that we're sort of thinking about and that we're trying to gear toward.
so you brought up
Because
something really interesting.
you need to
Go ahead.
guide someone when you're training them. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You can't just dump them into a VR thing and go, here you
Oh
go.
yeah.
You have
You
to
need
have
to be able to
somebody
be
there
in. You
with
need,
them
you need to
going,
be in world with them. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
You had mentioned so like building like what we had talked a little about building these sort of bespoke, again, specific for a brand. But like, say you build a world for, we'll call it, Pete's Donut Shop Metaverse world, and you build it for the. But then they turn on because right now we're seeing a lot of companies like Nike, for example, McDonald's. They're building these metaverse experiences into Roblox. What are the challenges? Is it easy to take something you built on its own and then port it into Roblox, or is it a whole other build altogether?
No, you really need to look at each venue and say, what capabilities does the venue have? What are we trying to do? But what you're talking about for Nike, that's a marketing exercise. Okay,
Sure.
so what they're doing is they're specifically going, Roblox has an audience that we want to reach. So
Mm-hmm.
how are we going to reach them? TV ads? No, they're in Roblox. We're going to go into Roblox. We're going to have a presence in Roblox.
Mm-hmm.
And whoever we need to hire to have a presence in there, then we'll hire them and we'll have a presence in Roblox. I guarantee you that they're going to have an experience in the Facebook world and in any other place they can have it because their marketing people know, hey, Fortnite,
Mm-hmm.
that's where the kids are, and
Sure.
that's our market. So marketing is a completely different question than training or
But is building inside of Roblox the same thing, or is it completely different?
No, I don't know because it's
Ah,
not using Unity scripting, and Nike's a big enough brand that they can talk to Roblox and say we need this special feature, and Roblox
right.
will
And
dedicate
work
some
with the
developers
Roblox
to
team.
doing
Yeah.
it. Not everybody's as big as Nike to get them to do that, right?
Right.
Roblox has their own notion, and there's a security thing.
Hmm.
Roblox doesn't want to let me come in and write any code I want. That would be crazy. So, like they have a valid reason for not just letting you do anything you want.
Right.
But again, for
Right.
marketing purposes, marketing people just need to know what can we do and what can't we do. And they can certainly build any 3D object with any signage and blinky lights and
Sure.
some interaction without any question.
So from a developer's perspective, right? Would it say again? We'll go back to Pete's Donut Metaverse. What helps the developer the most? Like when they come in and they have a vision of the metaverse. Like, what kind of information from you as a developer that would you like to see the client give you up front that makes it easier?
Well, what exactly do you want people to be able to do? What is your use case? First of
Hmm.
all, to go back to marketing, are you just trying to market stuff? In which case,
Right.
you probably don't even need developers. You're building 3D content. There's simple interactions that are already available
Hmm.
no matter what platform you're on. And what you need is skilled builders, skilled 3D builders, which is not really what I am. I understand that whole thing because I have to understand how to
Hmm.
import it and how to make it animate and turn parts of it on or off and stuff. But if you're just doing marketing, then you don't need much development. But if you're
Okay.
doing something serious where you're actually training someone how to
Like
repair a
really
car engine,
interactive. Yeah.
then you definitely probably need developers for the
Okay. And that would
special
become
things about, yeah.
come from like a custom made type of metaverse experience again for training. So that's when someone like you really comes into play in the situation where you're like you're literally building the world like from the foundation up.
Or
And
we're,
then
you
for
know,
them is it
we're still using foundations, but
Mhm.
they're not like Alt Space VR or Meta
Right.
Horizons or anything like that. They're, you know, the Oculus toolkit or the Windows mixed reality toolkit, or they're sort of programming foundations that give us, well, like the interaction toolkit. So they give us things like grabbable objects you
Hmm.
can grab in the world, things you can poke, things you can interact with the ray,
Hmm.
you know, like a pointer.
Hmm.
And then we use those to build your custom world, and maybe some new, you know, like if you want to have a wrench that
Right.
accurately looks like it's turning the rotation, then it needs to look like you're holding it accurately. And
Now, with clients, is it best that clients come and say, "Here's the concept art. Like, here's sort of like how like this is like like we would like to see this is our logo, and we want this part of it." Like that's all stuff that's probably helpful for you as you sort of build out this custom world for people.
well, it doesn't really help me that much. That's again, that's the art
Hmm.
folks who,
Okay.
you know, what does it look like? I'm going to come in and say, okay, the client's designed something that's a nightmare for me to create a collision mesh for, or it's going
Right.
like that's not going to perform well. It doesn't matter to me what they want it to look like. All that matters to
But
me is like, no, there's too many polygons. There's no way to make a collision properly,
explain
or
to
you
people
know,
what's a
it's
collision
bad
mesh. I
UX layout
Yeah,
kind of
I know what a
stuff.
collision mesh is, but could you tell people who's watching what a collision mesh is in case they don't know?
If you look around here and you see all this stuff and you think, okay, well,
Hmm.
this is the geometry of this world. Well, what you see is the visual geometry of this world, but there's an invisible geometry that you don't see called the collision mesh.
Mm.
And it's there. So if I take one of those basketballs outside and I heave it over there, it's going to hit the collision mesh. It doesn't matter what you see. So and the reason for that is because physics takes a lot of horsepower to do the calculations, and it hasn't been optimized for 30 or 40 years like drawing things has. So the visual aspect, they've got all that figured out how to do it really, really fast, so they can have many
Right.
more polygons in what you see, but the physics can't do the calculations as quickly. I mean, the physics typically runs at 10 times the frame rate of what you see. So
Hmm.
right there, you know, you need to reduce what you see by 1/10 to be able to uh, process the physics as fast. So that's what a collision mesh is. And I don't know if Alan can see it, but those bulbs that are hanging up in the ceiling are probably no collision
Yeah.
mesh for them because they're up high and, you know,
Right. But this wall behind us does. If I were to throw a
sure,
basketball at the wall, it's gonna bounce
yeah.
right off.
Anything
Yeah.
big, you know, and that's generally what it is. It's basically the size of the thing, and
Hmm.
small details would not have a collision mesh. Or things like that fire space in the fire there, it
Hmm.
doesn't collide with a basketball anyway, so it shouldn't have a collision mesh.
And that's
That's
sort of
what
like
collision
how
meshes are.
like as our avatars, right? As we like walk through a crowd, like we can't just like phase through a crowd because our avatars have a collision mesh. Am I correct? Where
Yeah, your avatar typically they use a what's called a capsule collider, and it's shaped like one of those pill, like a you know one of
Mhm.
those pills that come in
So
two
underneath
halves.
me is a capsule shape.
You're a capsule, and
Huh.
your bottom of you is sitting on the floor. And the reason they use a capsule is because mathematically, it's easy to calculate whether a point is inside or outside of that capsule. So they use it
Mm.
for physics because they can do a very fast calculation and say, you know, we want to make sure that your the bottom of your capsule is sitting on the floor and not, you
Right.
know, a foot off the floor and that kind of thing. But we also use collision meshes, like we'll put them on your hands so that at the fingertip, there may be a little tiny collision box so that when you go over to something you can poke, like a
Mm-hmm.
numeric keypad or something, that we go, oh, we've been poked by that collision mesh. So we detect. That's what they're often used for. So they're, like you might put a box, big giant box over in that doorway
Mm-hmm.
and you can't see it, but when someone walks through the doorway, they collide with it and it triggers an event to happen. And then in your programming, you can go, oh, somebody walked through the door. Now, that's the kind of thing that you can't do in alt space that I'm saying in Unity. I can do anything I want like that. And
Wide
that's
open.
why, yeah, that's why a game like if you play, Horizon Forbidden West or one of these new
No,
games,
sure. Yeah.
they,
Half-Life
they
Alex.
have, they can do whatever they want. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why the game is so rich and deep and has interactions in it that you don't have in other games. They have this fantastic climbing system. I don't know if you played it,
Mm-hmm.
but they have ability to climb big tall mountains and stuff and see. So you've got this ability to sort of radar and sense the environment, that they highlight all these yellow lines and you can jump up and climb up mountains. Which,
Right.
can you do that in here? Can you do that in Meta Horizons? You think Meta Horizons is ever going to even think about putting
Mm-hmm.
that feature in? You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but if you are a rock climbing equipment company and you
Mm-hmm.
wanted to do some kind of
Sure.
branded VR stuff, or even if you're the companies that have those indoor rock climbing things, there's a perfect thing would benefit from being done in VR and that you couldn't do
And
without
right.
using either Unity or Unreal at the low level.
Right. So, okay. So here's a question. So when it comes to, we're talking to you, obviously you're a single person and building a custom metaverse world. Typically, how many people are on a team? Say it's like a pretty, a pretty robust experience. How many people does it take to build a pretty robust VR experience or a very basic, again, being it's custom, basic one or a robust one? Like, what's the team size look like?
Well, and again, it depends on the scale and how fast they want it
Hmm.
done. But you're going to need, you need designers and you need tech artists and you need um, QA. You need a lot of QA and you need some devs.
Uh-huh.
So you probably need the minimum size of team would probably be a dozen people.
Really, to build
And
one sort of
then,
metaverse world.
yeah, I mean, so like maybe two or three devs, one
Hmm.
QA, a designer, a few tech artists, and that sort of thing. And it could shift. I mean, you might use 20 people at any given
Hmm.
time. You got 10 of them active, kind of thing.
So,
So
what is the role of
that'd be for
QA?
like a typical project to train on one
Okay.
thing, like the rock climbing example that I'm saying could
Right.
probably be done with a team of a dozen people, and let's say 3 months, 4 months.
Okay. And so, what is the role of a QA? I mean, I was it questions and answers, or what is that? What is quality
No, no,
assurance? What
no.
is that?
QA is
Yeah,
quality
I
assurance.
know. That was my
So you
little
need,
joke. But
yeah,
but
you need people to test, and
mhm,
especially if it's a social VR. So again, like if you had an instructor, which sort
mhm,
of for a rock climbing experience, that makes sense. You don't just throw people in there and let them do
right.
that. You want to have a trainer. And I mean, that could be sort of something that could, that's sort of an option that would add many months, but you could
Hmm.
theoretically in time produce sort of an AI version of a trainer.
Okay.
But again, that's a lot more involved. But again, it's something you would never be able to do on a just,
Right.
an Engage or anything like that. So basically, what were you asking?
I was asking like like the size of a team typically of building, and then my follow up questions would be like, and again, we're sort of I'm coming from the perspective like, is a client coming to us and saying, "Hey, like, how do I want a custom metaverse experience." So, like, what is a team involved besides the game? But also, how long does it take? Like, can it be? Is it like a month-long project? Is it a 2 weeks? Like, how quickly
Yeah,
can a
it's hard for
metaverse?
me to imagine a month-long project. I'd say probably the minimum engagement length of time is going to be at least 3 months because
Right.
you have to understand their needs and how, like you got to ask a lot of questions about exactly what is it you're trying to do. What do you try? So, and especially if it's something for training. So again, and it depends on the purpose they're doing it. So if they're just doing marketing thing, you can probably
Hmm.
do that a lot quicker than an actual training thing
Module,
where
much longer.
you've got specialized knowledge and you need specialized programming. If you're just doing a marketing thing, um, then most of the dev is cut out, and it's really just sort of iterating on what the
Hmm.
look and feel is going to be like. And a lot of times, clients come in, they already have 3D artwork. So
Right.
it guarantee you Nike didn't go to Roblox and go, we have this new shoe. Here's some drawings. Go make one. Nike came
Yeah.
to Roblox and went, look, here's 85 gigabytes worth of CAD models of our new shoe.
Hmm.
We need you to, and
Right.
this is sort of touches on one of the main things, and one of the most important things is to that you need to do is to take very high polygon models and reduce the number of polygons so they work and are they load and they don't cause lag. And that again, that's where sort of the difference between marketing and a training thing would come in. So we talked earlier in an earlier
Hmm.
podcast about Vario headsets, the very high end stuff,
Yeah.
and that's the
Yep.
kind of stuff that no, only 5 people in your company are going to run this, and you're going to need a $12,000 workstation to load the original Nike full
Hmm.
resolution things. And I wouldn't be surprised if the people at Nike who designed those shoes had those kind of systems.
Right.
VR system where they can take the shoe and turn it around and look down inside it and, you
Hmm.
know, really manipulate it. Because if you've ever used a CAD system, it's kind of you got the three views and you can spin it around on a 2D screen. Yeah, that's great. But even actually, Autodesk recently announced that 3D Studio Max and their other tools are going to have a VR mode.
Hmm.
And that's like because I use 3D Max, and I'm like, oh no, that's perfect because that's where you do the modeling, and you want to go to the 2D view and have the
Hmm.
normal three views for a
But you
lot of
also want to be
stuff.
able to get in
Yeah,
VR.
but then if you can just
Yeah.
go into that 3D view and click the button, and now you've got your shoe and you're turning it around and
You
looking
can
at
move
it,
it
and
around.
yeah.
So ultimately, there's a lot involved, right? The idea of jumping in the metaverse or creating a custom metaverse, it's if by bringing the right team of people, bringing in, it's achievable, but don't expect it to happen next week. It takes several, 3 months to
No, and
develop
again,
these things.
even if you're not doing a custom one, even if you're going to be doing, if you want to bring something into Meta Worlds or you want to bring something into All Space VR, it's not
Hmm.
something you would embark with on your own. You
Right.
definitely want to have someone who understands all that stuff, doing all the technical art and building
Like us.
your world, and not only that, but advising you
Hmm.
what
Right.
what's easy to do and what's not. Yeah, we can give you basketballs, we can do this, we can do that. Oh, you want to do that? Okay, well that's where you need to even if it seems like a small thing to the client, it's like, oh, that's where you need custom server code, blah blah blah, and that's maybe is there
Right.
another thing we can do other than that will make you
Sure.
happy and
Yeah.
it, you need advice
Hmm.
right from the start.
No, yeah. It's a partnership you embark on, and again, you need to have the right people involved, and then once again, and as you were saying, right, once the world's been built, right, there's maintenance involved. Like there's expectations that again, if there's a software update on the Oculus or sorry, the Meta, Quest, if there's or a software update on Steam or your Windows PC or whatever, that your experience has to have might need some maintenance so it can be able to continue to work.
And that
So,
applies regardless of what platform you're using. You
right.
need, I mean, if you put something in alt space, you need to continue to maintain an alt space account. And again, with those kind of things, it's not you, it's now your users have to keep their accounts up to
Sure.
date at all
Mhm.
times. And you've just sort of distributed the need for maintenance across a lot of people
Yeah.
instead of just yourself.
It's interesting.
But
Interesting. Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that I'm hoping to talk to Tim about is basically to offer to basically bundle all the costs into the full experience. So you need to have server space, you need to update
Hmm.
your client periodically. We want to make our stuff scalable. If you want to come along and make changes later, we want to make that
Yeah.
easy. So again, that should all be sort of bundled into the estimates so that you know up front, look, it's going to cost you this much a year to maintain this
Right. This
this
virtual
place.
experience. Yeah. This place where,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
your digital twin.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, there's
Interesting.
the cost to stand it up and then the cost to maintain it. And that needs to be
Hmm.
recognized up front. And
Well, let's quickly this is get more of an opinion thought question is digital twinning. So big conversation right now, like, what's a digital twin? Where brands coming into it? And just from your own perspective and your own opinion, do you think digital twinning is important for a business to be competitive in today's world? Do you think what are your thoughts on that?
well, again, so you're talking about marketing stuff. So yeah,
Yeah.
again, there's two different sides to it. There's the marketing angle, and then there's the industrial angle. And yeah, we've talked in prior podcasts
Hmm.
about the industrial angle and why it's important there. I mean, you want to be able to look at the
Hmm.
status of the nuclear power plant from
Yeah.
anywhere else, right? But for the marketing angle, again, it's just a recognition that people hang out in the metaverse. Marketing
Yeah.
wants to reach people. That's what marketing
Yeah.
is. If you want to reach certain people, the way to reach them is to have a presence in the metaverse. And just to sort of, we had a meeting internally with FS about, how can we use VR to reach people for recruiting purposes, right? And we
Hmm.
sort of came to the conclusion of we should establish a presence in the places where they are. So we should, if Fortnite, I don't think Fortnite does this, but if Fortnite had a way for a brand to go in and put up like just, I'm
Yeah.
sure, like a Facebook web page. So, and you shouldn't be going, well, should we do it here or there? You should be doing it everywhere. This should have a presence in alt space, should have a presence in Meta, should have a presence in
Yeah.
Engage, maybe.
That's a really, what, you bring up something that's actually really amazing. Like, why aren't companies just creating a virtual room in some of these platforms that maybe post their jobs that are open to the public? People can,
Yeah.
people are in these spaces. Tim, our CEO, Tim Martin. I'm gonna say, hey, the three of us pow out. I'll pitch the idea. We'll all get credit for it. You know.
Yeah.
I think but look, we are at the top of the hour, and of course, this
Are
has been
we?
always.
Can we do
Yeah, yeah.
another hour?
I wish we could do another hour. There'll be other conversations, and I always really enjoy these conversations because Pete, you've been doing this for such a long time. You're such an expert. You give such a great sort of perspective, not just from a user side of it, but from a developer side of it. And so I really appreciate it. But thanks to everybody for joining us on our podcast. I'm Bobby Carlton, and of course, Pete Patterson's with us. And Pete is a developer here at FS Studio. Of course, our producer, Alan, who you can't see Alan if you're watching through a video, but But if you're listening, Alan's here. You can say hi, Alan, right? Can you say hi? Are we breaking a third wall? There's Alan. But thanks everybody for listening, and of course, we really appreciate it. And yeah, just keep watching. Write a comment below if there's something you want to hear about, or if you have a question for Pete. I think Pete will probably get most of the questions because Pete is our expert. And but if there's a question you have for Pete, just put it in the comment below, whatever platform you're watching or listening on, and we will make sure it gets to him. So again, thanks everyone.